All right, welcome back with a quick little preview here for you guys, continuing on with my mini series here where I'm going through each and every region's upper division and doing a brief review of any roster changes if there were any, and talking about each and every team and some of the things that I'm looking forward to seeing from them in this upcoming tour, or some things that I'd really like to see them continue to work on. And of course, I'm going to be going through every single region. I've already done Western Europe. You can check that out on my channel, except for Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe I'm not going to be doing until we know when that tour is going to be taking place due to the postponement. So unfortunately, no Eastern Europe preview until then. But I'm going to be doing China, Southeast Asia, and then after that I'm going to be doing my week 1 preview for the lower division matches this coming week, and then tomorrow will be upper division matches as well as my South America and North America previews. So kicking things off with PSG.LGD, who are at the top of the DPC, but not only that, of course, the region as well, with 550 DPC points, one of only 3 teams who finished both first place in their division and then first place in the regional finals. However, Boom being one team that did go through some deductions due to their roster changes. So currently PSG.LGD is sitting tied in first place with only one other team, Team Spirit. And I don't really know what else to really say about PSG.LGD. I mean, sure, this maybe wasn't as dominant as I think we were expecting. There were a few moments where they looked like they were starting to slip a little bit, or some teams were catching them off guard, but that was never really off of the back of PSG.LGD necessarily playing poorly. It usually just felt like the other team was playing their best, their absolute best Dota in order to beat them, in order to just take a single game off of these guys in a series. That one series against EHOME, actually both series that they played against EHOME in these past couple months, are great examples of that. But other than that, PSG.LGD has been fantastic, firing on all cylinders. And again, even though they didn't have a clean, like 14-0 series throughout this whole thing, they did drop a few games here and there. There's no real reason to worry with PSG.LGD, man. Like, they are still right now the top team in China, no question about that. And I honestly don't see them missing either of the following 2 majors, thus not missing TI. There's no way. And I think it's pretty safe to call that this early on. And if anyone's curious as to why there may have been any doubt about that, I mean, I think Invictus Gaming is a good example of, just because a team has the same roster doesn't mean they're going to have the same results as last year. And Invictus, they changed one member, and now they're in the lower division. So, all right, now moving on to RNG, and the next 2 teams I'm going to be talking about, so RNG and Aster, are pretty darn close to one another. Their points are separated by quite a bit. RNG finishing off Tour 1 with 250 DPC points, which is very, very solid. Gets themselves right into that top 12 already. But really, it's been all about RNG's consistency. At the start of the tour, we saw that they were still having difficulty, specifically in God King, in really being able to be a reliable carry and really come through for them. There were a lot of clutch moments, specifically by Somnus, in games that RNG probably should have lost, and Somnus just kind of carried them back into it. And again, not just necessarily him. I think everyone on the team's been playing quite well. But as time went on, God King and the rest of RNG seem to have gotten much more reliable and much more consistent in their performance, and it really started to show when they would play against Aster, for example, and they would lose their series there, but then they would come back and beat them twice. I think they beat them 3 times now in the first tour, due to the fact that they played against them for tiebreakers after the first tour, and then they played them twice more in the regional finals, and they really made it look quite good every single time. Not the most convincing wins, but they are now, I can say, clearly ahead of Aster in some portions. And so for RNG, I would really love to see them keep working at that consistency and start maybe chipping away and maybe catching up with PSG.LGD and being the best team in China right now, as I do think that the potential is there, but again, the bar is set very, very high. Now moving on to Aster, and again, I kind of pair them up with RNG because they've played against each other so many times, and a lot of those series have gone 2-3 games, and the fact that Aster has been able to take off a series from them. This team is also another team that I'm hoping just continues to improve from this point, continues to get more and more consistent. The changes that they made in the offseason did not end up being one that hindered their performance. I think that these changes have been very good. Specifically, Ori has been playing some of his best Dota, which is really saying something for Ori. But I think Aster altogether are coming together very, very well. They're just having a hard time in beating the top teams like RNG and PSG.LGD. And so I'm just hoping to see them maybe crack into that a little bit here for the next tour. And we'll see how it goes. Also, congratulations to both XXS and Bobica for breaking the all-time record for most games played by 2 players. With what, like a 56% win rate, something like that. Anyways, it's a very high amount. I think it's like 1,455 was when they broke the record. So Very impressive. All right, now moving on to EHOME, the last of the Chinese teams that made it into the regional finals, the team that, you know, out of these 4 teams here, I think EHOME coming into this was the weakest one. Not to say that they didn't have their highlights, because they definitely did, and this was a team that I think a lot of people weren't watching at the start, but started to pay more attention to as time went on, as they were putting up pretty good fights against some of the best teams. Again, I'll take up that series against PSG.LGD, where in both series that they played against them, first in the regional aspect of the tour and then in the first round of the regional finals, they gave PSG.LGD a pretty hard time. It was not an easy 2-0 win for PSG.LGD whatsoever. And again, they were able to play some of their best Dota. The only thing is that it kind of only had one thing going for them, and then once they would win that game, PSG.LGD would just strike back with all their experience, all their talent, and they would just win the series from there. So for EHOME, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I hope that they can just continue on this path. This is a stack of players that are coming in from the lower division from the last season, and they have done nothing but impress me so far. Specifically, Zeal has been a real standout. His offlane Night Stalker has become probably already a classic hero for him. Seriously, whenever he gets it, he looks fantastic on it. And with some of the Night Stalker changes that we got in the recent patch, I'm hoping that we continue to see him play it, as again, he looked very impressive on it. And so I'm hoping that they can continue up with this trajectory that they're on. They only finished the tour with 60 points, but then again, 60 is still better than nothing. It still gives them a chance to maybe have another fantastic tour, maybe make it to a major and earn some more points there, and bam, suddenly you're finding yourself in the top 12. But we'll have to see. All right, now talking about the bottom half teams. Now, first off, we have Vici Gaming, who still earned themselves 30 DPC points for finishing 5th place in the regional aspect. However, they do miss out on those regional finals, so they do not get any additional points there. And honestly, I'm a little torn with Vici Gaming right now. They, of course, went through a substantial amount of roster changes in the offseason, losing pretty much everyone on their roster other than Poyoyo, and you can kind of tell that the team hasn't fully gelled yet, hasn't really fully come together. They were having a really hard time beating a lot of these better teams in the division. However, they are still a team that is not to be or underestimated, I should say, as they were still able to reliably beat a lot of the teams that were below them. Even with how poorly they were playing, it's still saying something. So I'm hoping for Vici Gaming that this ends up being, that this time off that they've had since the end of the first tour, that they've been able to come together more. They've been able to sort of put some strategies together that they can work on, maybe a few cheese strats to take down some of the best teams in this division, because sometimes that is what it takes. But I'm hoping that they can end up getting themselves back into contention, as Vici Gaming has been one of those orgs that has been really, really fun to watch from China for a very, very long time. I would like to continue to see that for them. And you'll notice that so far in this video, as I talked about in the start, I'll talk about if there were any roster changes or anything. There have not been any roster changes throughout this entire board so far. In fact, the only team that went through roster changes in the offseason was one that was coming in through the lower division, in which I'll be talking about later. But yeah, things were pretty stagnant in China for this offseason. And now the last of the teams staying in the upper division for this second tour, we have LBZS. And for most teams, for example, in my last review, Team Nigma Galaxy finished in 6th place. That is usually a pretty disappointing placement. Not only do you miss out on finishing in the top half of the division, but you also do not earn yourselves any DPC points for this tour. For LBZS, I think this is fantastic for them. This is a team coming in from the lower division that pretty much lost their entire roster coming in, at minus Katyu. He was the only member that actually stayed on it. And they were surprisingly competitive with a lot of the better teams in this division. Again, similar to EHOME, but didn't have quite as much consistency or as much flair as EHOME. But I think they can be pretty happy with this result. I guess, again, with just how quickly they kind of threw this roster together, their results were pretty surprisingly good. And so I'm hoping that they can stick together. I'm hoping that they can start to improve some more upon here. And we'll see how they end up doing in the following tour. I'm very excited to see how they do in this following tour again. All right, now moving on to some teams coming in from the lower division, one of which I am super mega excited for, because it is just a superstar stack that just seems to get even better every single time they make a change. And that is, of course, going to be Xtreme, who, coming in from the lower division, they did have SRF and Jay on the team previously. They have since replaced them with Lou and Old 11, which is just stacking the roster even more, which already consists of Paparazzi, DY, and PYW, which is just, again, an insane stack. Not only that, but they're coached by TI6 winner, Blink. And I am so excited for this stack. Again, this is just like a ragtag group of some of the best Chinese players that we've ever had, especially in recent years, that are now coming in from the lower division with a whole bunch of momentum. My only issue is that, and this might just be because of their old roster, and maybe they have now fixed those weak points, they didn't have the cleanest run in the lower division. They dropped a few series that were a little questionable. I do believe they lost one series to CDEC, who was completely winless up to that point in the tour. They were like 0-6, and then they just dropped that series. But I'm hoping that that was just a fluke and they'll be able to get back to it. Again, there's a lot of vulnerable teams in this division right now. There's a lot of teams that are still going through that kind of awkward phase since the end of TI10, where they're starting to get their roster together, starting to play very well. And I'm hoping Xtreme is going to be able to kind of capitalize on the fact that some of these teams, like Vici Gaming, like EHOME, are not playing at 100% yet. And so we'll see how this ends up going for them. Again, very excited. And last but not least, my other, or not mine, but the other team coming in from the lower division, we have Magma. Similar thing with Magma as Xtreme. Coming in through the lower division, very impressive performance. That was a very close lower division in tour number 1. They did have a few slip-ups here and there, but again, I'm hoping those were just flukes. These guys, however, are not going through any sort of roster changes coming into this upper division. And we'll see how they end up doing. They've got a pretty fantastic roster that I'm excited to watch. And again, let's see if they can make it in the top 4. Because again, if we do have a traditional major cycle for this tour, top 4 in China is what you need to do to make it. So now I pass the question off to you. Who do you guys think wins this division? And don't say PSG.LGD, because that's not fair. Everyone says PSG.LGD. Be original, say something else. But maybe I'll ask you guys, what team are you most excited to watch? I, for one, it's got to be Xtreme, just because of the fact that it's got like Paparazzi, who after TI10 was just popping off in pubs. You're bringing in players like Old 11. You got PYW and DY, who have been fantastic for a couple years now, and I cannot see them missing top 4. And that might be a bit of a stretch to say that, but I think they make it to the next major. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys very soon with a Southeast Asia preview and then my week 1 preview for the lower division, which I'm going to have to hurry up on because the lower division starts very soon. So I'll talk to you guys soon.